Imagine a world where we stop debating endless ideologies and start solving real problems, where idealism doesn't get in the way of progress and every action is taken with one goal: making the world a better place. Sounds too simple, right? But that's exactly the power of pragmatism, the philosophy that says, if it works, do it. And here's the catch. While the world is busy arguing over what's right, pragmatic thinkers are quietly changing the game, solving problems we all thought were too big to tackle. So, what if we applied this mindset to our global crises? From climate change to economic inequality, from political gridlock to technological disruption, what if we could actually solve these issues, not with perfect solutions, but with the most effective real-world approaches? Stick with me, because in this video, we're going to dive into the controversial idea of using pragmatism to tackle global problems head-on. I promise you, it's not just about talking, it's about action. So, if you're tired of hearing about problems without solutions, this is the video you've been waiting for. Keep watching, because we're about to explore how pragmatism isn't just a philosophy, it's the blueprint for a better world. Number 1. Wealth redistribution with a twist. Universal basic equity. Imagine this. What if instead of giving away wealth through charity, we could create an entirely new system where everyone had an actual stake in the future, financially speaking? Sounds like a dream, right? Well, buckle up, because I'm about to introduce something that's a little unconventional, but could change everything. It's called universal basic equity. Now you might be thinking, that sounds complicated. Isn't wealth redistribution just about giving handouts? And yes, I get it. You're probably picturing a system where the rich just throw cash at the poor. But let me tell you, this isn't about charity, it's about ownership. We all know the drill. There's a handful of people at the top who own most of the wealth, while the rest of us are just getting by. It feels like we're stuck in this endless cycle, right? You know the type. The hard-working people who wake up every day and give it their all but still can't seem to catch up. Or maybe you're that person. You do everything right, work hard, and yet the wealth gap feels insurmountable. It's frustrating, it's disheartening. But here's the kicker. What if everyone had a piece of the pie, not just a handout, but a real ownership stake? Think about it. What if we could shift the system so that we, the everyday folks, could own shares in the companies that are driving the economy? We wouldn't just be consumers, we'd be stakeholders. Here's how universal basic equity works. Imagine that instead of just paying taxes or receiving welfare, every person gets equity, shares in companies based on the products they consume or the services they use. Sounds crazy, I know, but trust me, it's genius. Every time you buy something, the company doesn't just profit from you, you profit from them too. The idea is simple. We give everyone a small stake in the companies that dominate our lives, turning us from passive consumers into active owners. Psychologically, this flips the narrative. It's no longer about waiting for help. It's about reaping the rewards of your daily participation. And yeah, it would still be progressive, but it would change the power dynamic at the core. Let me break it down with a real example. Last week I was chatting with a friend who works in retail. She loves her job, but let's be real, she's barely getting by. Then she brought up this idea that if she could own even a small portion of the company she works for, just think about the difference that could make. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Instead of spending years climbing an impossible ladder, she could have a stake in the company from the start. Every sale, every paycheck, she would feel the benefits. She would own a piece of the future, and what's even cooler, the company would be invested in her success. It's a win-win. This approach isn't just about money, it's about shifting the power back to the people. It's about empowering us to reclaim what's rightfully ours, our peace of mind, our dignity, and our futures. Imagine the impact on mental health when everyone knows they have a share in the wealth being created. No more feeling like a cog in the wheel. No more working to survive while others profit. You'd walk into work not as an employee, but as a partner in a larger vision. A vision where your success directly impacts the bottom line of every company you support. That's power. That's equity. So, here's the takeaway. Universal basic equity isn't just a dream, it's a practical step toward real change. It's about moving from a system where wealth is hoarded by the few to one where we all have a seat at the table. Your future, your wealth, your stake in the world, it's in your hands. Don't just wait for change to happen. Be part of the movement that makes it happen. Because when everyone owns a piece, we all rise together. Number 2, carbon accountability, pay-as-you-emit taxation. What if I told you that the key to solving our climate crisis isn't just about cutting down emissions, but about holding everyone, yes, everyone, accountable for the carbon they release into the world? Sounds intense, right? Well, hear me out. Imagine a world where every time a company, a person, or even a government releases carbon into the air, they pay for it. Not in some distant future, but right now. Now you might be thinking, that's just another tax, right? Another way to make us pay for someone else's mistakes. But trust me, this is different. This is about shifting the burden and turning it into something actionable, something that finally gets results. We've all been there, haven't we? Whether it's a company we support or even just our own daily choices, using plastic, driving a car, or heating our homes, we contribute to the problem, knowingly or unknowingly. You know the type. People who use their car every day don't think twice about their energy bills or leave the lights on without a second thought. But here's the thing, every time you or anyone else emits carbon into the atmosphere, it costs us. We're all living under the weight of it. And yet, there's no direct consequence for the ones making the biggest contributions. Wouldn't it make more sense if the people and businesses causing the pollution had to face the true cost of their actions, not in some abstract way, but with real, immediate consequences? Here's where the idea of pay-as-you-emit taxation comes in. Think of it like this. What if every ton of CO2 you or a company releases is taxed? Every factory, every plane trip, every car that burns gas. If it emits carbon, they pay for it, right then and there. And not just a symbolic fee. The money goes directly toward combating climate change, funding renewable energy projects, and incentivizing sustainable innovation. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like it could be a nightmare for businesses or individuals. But here's the twist. If we normalize carbon accountability, it becomes a game changer. It motivates industries to innovate and develop cleaner technologies because every ton of carbon they emit will directly hit their pockets. And the more responsible we all are as individuals, the less we have to pay. It's a win-win for both the planet and your wallet. Let me give you a real-life example. A few months ago, I was having coffee with a friend who owns a small business. She was explaining how tough it is to go green, given the cost of renewable energy sources and the complexity of changing her operations. But then, we started brainstorming. What if there was a system in place that taxed businesses based on their carbon emissions? At first, she was skeptical. That sounds expensive, she said. But then I pointed out, what if that tax worked as a motivator for cleaner options? If she had to pay extra for her emissions, wouldn't she be more inclined to invest in solar panels or greener alternatives to cut down her costs? After thinking it over, she agreed. It was a way for businesses to internalize the true cost of their actions and, more importantly, a way to help level the playing field for businesses that are already working hard to reduce their carbon footprint. It's the push that could accelerate innovation. Now, here's the real power behind this idea. It's not just about the environment, it's about us, the people. It's about reclaiming control over what's happening to our planet and ensuring that those who profit from polluting are held accountable. This is about protecting your future, your kids' future, and the future of our planet. It's not just about paying taxes, it's about creating a system where everyone plays a part in cleaning up the mess. Imagine being able to walk down the street knowing that every action, every decision is part of a larger effort to restore balance. You're no longer just a bystander, you're an active participant in saving the planet. So here's the takeaway. Pay-as-you-emit taxation isn't just about paying for your carbon footprint, it's about making every emission count, turning the tables on polluters, and making them pay the price for the damage they've caused. It's about empowerment, accountability, and real action. You're not just waiting for someone else to make the change. You're part of the change. The world doesn't change because of grand gestures, but because every single person and every single company steps up and takes responsibility. Your actions matter. Let's make sure they count. Number 3, reverse brain drain, incentivizing local talent development. What if I told you that the solution to our country's brain drain isn't about waiting for the best minds to come back, but about actively creating an environment where they want to stay and build? Yes, trust me on this one. Imagine if we could flip the script on the traditional narrative. Instead of sending our best and brightest abroad, what if we incentivize them to build careers right here, in the place they love? Sounds too good to be true, right? But stick with me, and I'll show you how it's not only possible but actually necessary. We've all been there, right? You've seen those news stories about young professionals leaving for better opportunities abroad. You know the type, the recent graduate with big dreams who, despite all the potential at home, feels like their future is brighter somewhere else. Or maybe you're that person, stuck in a job market that seems stagnant, waiting for opportunities that never come. The frustration is real. The world is full of talented people, yet we watch as they pack their bags for greener pastures, leaving behind potential, creativity, and hope. But why? What if we could turn that around? Here's where reverse brain drain comes in. What if we could provide the opportunities and incentives here to make people want to stay? Imagine offering tax breaks for entrepreneurs, making career advancement faster, or creating education programs that cater directly to the needs of local markets. This isn't just about convincing people to stay, it's about showing them that they don't have to leave to achieve their potential. It's about creating an ecosystem where staying isn't just the more practical option, it's the more rewarding one. And here's the kicker. When people start to see the potential of their own country and invest their time and energy in it, they can transform it in ways we've never imagined. Let me share a story. A few months ago, I had a conversation with a friend who's an engineer. He's talented, driven, and had always dreamt of working for international companies. But like so many others, he felt like he was hitting a wall. He had options abroad, but he didn't want to leave his family or his community. Then, he came across a local program that offered startup funding for innovative tech projects. He took the plunge and entered a competition. Fast forward a few months, and now he's leading his own startup, working with some of the brightest minds in the country and making an impact at home. That moment changed everything for him. He realized that opportunity doesn't have to be somewhere else. It's right here, as long as we're willing to create the space for it. Now think about it. The emotional empowerment here is massive. It's about reclaiming control over your career, your future, and your country's future. You're no longer bound by the belief that success can only be found elsewhere. You're building the future in the place you belong. It's about creating a culture where local talent can flourish without feeling the need to go abroad for validation or success. This isn't just an opportunity for the individuals. It's a chance for communities to thrive, for countries to grow, and for economies to bloom. The takeaway here is simple but powerful. By investing in our own people, by incentivizing local talent to stay and grow, we can reverse the brain drain and create a system that benefits everyone. Your dreams, your community, and your country all get to thrive together. So, the next time you're wondering if you should leave for greener pastures, just remember, sometimes the grass is greener right where you are. Your future is here, your opportunities are here, and the time to build is now. Number 4, population control, the two-child policy, 2.0. What if I told you that population control could be the key to solving some of our most pressing global problems? Yes, trust me on this one. We often hear about the challenges of overpopulation, overcrowded cities, strained resources, environmental degradation. But what if we could take a more proactive approach and tackle this head-on in a way that feels practical and even beneficial? Now, I know what you're thinking. Are we really talking about limiting family sizes? Yes, and it's not as radical as it might sound. Let's talk about the concept of population control 2.0, a modern-day, more thoughtful take on the two-child policy. We've all seen the consequences of unchecked population growth. You know the type: the overcrowded cities, the rush for resources, the constant strain on our healthcare, education, and social systems. It's the kind of thing we've all felt in one way or another: the rising cost of living, traffic that never ends, and a planet that feels like it's just a little bit too full. The reality is, we live in a world where the numbers don't lie, resources are finite, and if we keep growing at this pace, something's got to give. But instead of just throwing up our hands and letting the problem snowball, what if there was a way to course correct? What if we could introduce a system that both empowers individuals and helps us avoid future disasters? Here's where the two-child policy 2.0 comes in. I'm not talking about heavy-handed government control or forced decisions. No, that's not the goal. Instead, it's about creating a framework that encourages smaller families through incentives, education, and yes, even benefits. Think of it as a gentle nudge rather than a hard rule. The idea is to reduce strain on our resources and infrastructure while still giving families the freedom to grow in a way that's sustainable for everyone. It's not about punishing people for having more kids, but rather providing them with the tools and options that make a smaller family a viable and even desirable choice. Imagine tax breaks for families who limit their number of children, or more access to educational resources for couples who choose family planning. These incentives would create a positive framework where the decision feels empowered rather than restricted. Let me give you an example from my own life. I have a friend who recently decided to have a second child, but they didn't make that decision lightly. They did a lot of research, had deep discussions, and weighed the environmental and financial impacts. This wasn't an oops, baby. It was a conscious choice. I've seen more and more people in my circle do the same. The idea of limiting family size isn't about taking away the joy of having kids. It's about recognizing that our decisions today have long-lasting consequences. By making family planning more accessible and encouraging people to think about their impact, we can empower families to make informed choices that align with a larger goal, creating a more sustainable world. This isn't just about family planning. It's about reclaiming control over the future. It's about having a conversation that's often hard to have, but so necessary. It's about finding the balance between personal choice and the collective good. I know this might sound like a tough pill to swallow, But imagine the peace of mind knowing that your decision isn't just right for your family, it's right for the world. By implementing policies that help guide families to make these informed decisions, we don't just avoid problems, we build a better, more balanced future for everyone. So here's the takeaway: population control 2.0 isn't about limiting freedom. It's about providing the space to make choices that are both beneficial for your family and sustainable for the world. It's about giving people the tools, the support, and the incentives to make decisions that lead to a brighter, more stable future. Your choices matter. When you act with foresight and responsibility, you're not just protecting your future, you're protecting everyone's. The world doesn't have to feel overcrowded and stretched thin. It can be a place where balance and opportunity thrive. Number 5, tech giants for the greater good. Mandatory open source contributions. What if I told you that the biggest tech companies on the planet could actually be using their resources for more than just profits? Yes, trust me on this. Imagine a world where the massive corporations that control so much of our digital lives are required to contribute to the open source community. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't open source free? What's in it for them? Well, that's the point. It's about creating a tech ecosystem that doesn't just serve the interests of a few, but actually benefits the many. Creating a world where collaboration, innovation, and accessibility are at the core of technological progress. We've all been there, scrolling through a new app, marveling at the sheer brilliance behind it, yet feeling a bit overwhelmed at the thought of how much control these tech giants have over our data, our decisions, and sometimes even our lives. It's easy to get disillusioned. The companies who shape our digital world often seem more focused on squeezing out profits rather than improving the actual user experience or contributing back to the community that made their success possible. And while they claim to innovate and disrupt, how many of us feel like we're left out of the process? What if there was a way to change that? Enter mandatory open source contributions. Here's the idea. Rather than tech giants hoarding all their innovations behind paywalls and closed systems, what if we made it mandatory for them to contribute some of their software, algorithms, and tools to the open source world? No, not just donating some old code from 10 years ago that no one cares about. I'm talking about actively contributing to projects that would be available to everyone: developers, entrepreneurs, startups, and even governments. The kind of code that could actually move the entire tech industry forward by encouraging transparency, diversity of thought, and collective growth. Now, I know that sounds like a dream, but hear me out. If a company like Google, Microsoft, or Apple had to dedicate a certain percentage of their development resources to open source, imagine the level of collaboration and innovation that would follow. I've seen this work on a smaller scale. A friend of mine runs a tech startup, and they've been able to leverage open source software in ways that have saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars and allowed them to build faster and smarter. The freedom that comes from being able to tweak and improve existing code is a game changer. But imagine if the big players in the industry did this on a much larger scale. Let's say Apple had to open source some of its most revolutionary apps or systems. Developers could adapt, improve, and repurpose them for all kinds of applications. Suddenly, it's not just one company benefiting, it's everyone. The whole ecosystem becomes more robust, more inclusive, and more innovative. Sure, companies would still have their proprietary systems for some things, but the idea here isn't to strip them of their competitive advantage. It's about encouraging the industry as a whole to grow in a way that benefits humanity, not just shareholders. And the best part? This doesn't just benefit the tech community. It benefits all of us. As consumers, we'd be able to trust the products we use more, knowing that they're built on open, accessible foundations. And as people, we'd reclaim some of the control over the technologies that have become so deeply integrated into our daily lives. This isn't just about making the industry more transparent. It's about using the massive resources of these companies to build tools that everyone can use, improve, and innovate on. It's a win-win for both consumers and creators. So here's the deal. Mandatory open source contributions is not just a way to ensure that the tech giants give back. It's a way to empower developers, startups, and creators of all kinds to harness the power of open source software. It's about creating a space where innovation thrives, not because of corporate greed, but because of collaboration. When tech giants are held accountable to contribute to the greater good, they aren't just improving the industry, they're improving our lives. And in doing so, they show strength, vision, and the ability to lead with integrity. When they give back, they're not just earning more, they're earning our respect. Number 6, reinventing democracy, voting rights for tax contributions. Imagine this. What if your right to vote wasn't just tied to where you live, but also to the taxes you contribute? Yes, you heard that right. Voting based on tax contributions. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Isn't that just crazy? Stay with me here. What if this system could actually solve some of the problems we face with voter apathy and inequality, while giving every citizen more of a voice in shaping the future of their country? Let's be honest. Most of us have been frustrated with politics at some point. Whether it's feeling like your vote doesn't matter or seeing the same old problems recycled over and over, we've all been there. You know the type, the ones who complain about taxes but then don't care enough to engage in the political process. And yet, these same people still have a say in how tax money is spent. So, what if we flipped the script? What if those who contribute more to the system had a stronger say in how it operates? The key here isn't about restricting access to voting, but rather making sure that those who are investing in the system are getting the kind of influence that matches their contribution. It's a strategy designed to promote deeper engagement, responsibility, and a stronger connection to the political process. Here's the twist. This isn't about punishing those who can't contribute financially. It's about creating a system where everyone's voice is heard, but where those who are most invested in the system can ensure their hard-earned money isn't being wasted or misallocated. Imagine the power shift. The incentive to pay taxes becomes about more than just a civic duty. It becomes about ensuring that your voice is heard loud and clear when it comes to how that money is used. In this system, the more you contribute, the more influence you have in shaping the policies that directly affect your life. Now, let's bring this down to earth with a real-life example. Think about a small business owner, someone who's pouring their time, energy, and capital into building something that sustains not just their family, but also their employees and the local community. This person is paying taxes, but they're also directly contributing to the economy. Now imagine they don't have much of a say in the policies that affect small businesses, even though they're heavily invested. Under the current system, their vote is equal to someone who hasn't paid taxes in years. That doesn't seem fair, right? By tying voting rights to tax contributions, we're saying, hey, you're not just a citizen by geography. You're a citizen who's directly contributing to the well-being of the country, and your voice deserves to be amplified. And here's the emotional kicker. This system isn't just about power or control. It's about reclaiming your space in the decision-making process. It's about saying, I am doing my part. I'm paying into this system, and I deserve to have a say in how things go. For those who are underrepresented or feel like their voices don't matter in the current political climate, this could be a game changer. It would provide a sense of ownership and empowerment, allowing citizens to feel like their contributions are truly valued, not just financially, but politically. The bottom line is this: voting rights for tax contributions isn't about making the rich more powerful or disenfranchising the poor. It's about creating a democracy that feels more connected, more accountable, and more equitable. By linking financial contribution with voting rights, we empower people to invest more in the political system, not just with their money, but with their time, energy, and commitment to their community. And when people feel invested in a system, they're more likely to make it better. This is about reclaiming your voice, your influence, and your role in shaping the future. It's about making sure that when you speak, your words carry weight. Your contribution matters, and so should your vote. Number 7. Food waste warriors, penalizing excess production. What if I told you that the solution to food waste doesn't just lie in consuming less, but in producing less? Yes, you heard that right. Penalizing excess food production. Now, I know you're probably thinking, wait, aren't we always being told to produce more to meet the demand? But hear me out. What if cutting down on overproduction could actually solve the problem of food waste at its source? Instead of the old narrative of trying to get people to waste less, why not flip the script and make it harder to create more than we need in the first place? We've all been there, right? Staring at that full fridge or pantry, trying to figure out how we ended up with so much food we're never going to eat. You know the type, the person who buys groceries in bulk, only to realize halfway through the week that half of it will end up in the trash. But it's not just us, the everyday consumers. It's happening on a much bigger scale. Have you ever wondered why supermarkets throw away perfectly good food just because it's past its prime? Or farmers plow under crops that could have fed thousands? Overproduction isn't just wasteful, it's downright irresponsible. So, why do we let it happen? Now imagine a world where businesses, farms, and supermarkets face real consequences for producing more food than we can actually consume. The idea here isn't about restricting food production. It's about creating an economic incentive to align food production with demand. If you penalize excess production, businesses would have to be much smarter about how they plan and distribute food. They'd have to take into account actual consumption patterns, seasonal shifts, and demand fluctuations. No more throwing away perfectly good fruits and veggies just because there's a sell-by date. Instead, everything gets put to good use, whether it's donated, composted, or sold in smaller quantities. Sounds good, right? Let's break it down with a real-life example. Picture this. A local bakery is constantly overproducing loaves of bread every morning just to ensure they don't run out. But here's the catch. By noon, half the bread is going stale and ends up being tossed. What if the bakery faced a penalty for that excess production? What if the penalty wasn't a financial one, but rather a social one, like a requirement to donate or repurpose that excess food or be held accountable for the waste? They'd be more incentivized to make only as much bread as they can sell, and potentially even partner with local food banks to avoid the waste. The bakery wins because it's producing only what's needed, and the community benefits from less food waste. But here's the emotional punch. This isn't just about economics. It's about reclaiming our planet, our resources, and our dignity. Think about it. Every time we throw away food, we're not just wasting groceries, we're wasting potential. We're wasting the effort of those who worked hard to produce it, the energy it took to get it to our kitchens, and the environmental resources that went into growing and distributing it. By curbing excess production, we're taking responsibility, not just as consumers, but as stewards of the earth. And let's be honest, that feels pretty empowering. It's about knowing that every meal you eat, every purchase you make, isn't just about satisfying hunger. It's about being part of a solution to a much larger problem. So, what's the takeaway here? We've got the power to change the way we produce and consume food. By penalizing excess production, we shift the focus from wasteful abundance to mindful abundance. It's about balance, responsibility, and reclaiming control over the food system. The next time you see a wasteful practice, think about the impact it's having on your planet, your community, and even your own well-being. Let's work together to stop the cycle of overproduction and food waste. Your choices matter, your actions matter, and together we can make a huge difference. It's time to fight food waste at its source, one bite at a time. Number 8. Global military to green shift, repurposing defense budgets for climate action. What if I told you that the key to solving our climate crisis might just be hiding in plain sight, right under the noses of global military budgets? Yes, you heard that right. What if we could repurpose even a fraction of the world's defense spending and channel it into climate action? Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds too far-fetched. Or, we need the military for protection, right? Well, let me break it down for you. What if our defense system could be the very catalyst for saving the planet? We've all seen the news, right? Natural disasters, rising sea levels, wildfires raging across continents. Climate change isn't just an environmental issue, it's becoming a global security threat. But what do we do about it? We're throwing money at the military to protect us from external threats, but we're not facing a bigger enemy right now than climate change itself. The irony here is almost too much to ignore. Billions are spent each year on defending nations against potential external threats. But where's the investment in defending our future from a rapidly changing climate? Now, hear me out. What if we used a portion of those defense budgets to tackle climate change directly? Instead of pouring billions into more weapons and military strategies, why not invest in green technologies, renewable energy, and disaster prevention strategies? After all, a climate catastrophe could end up being the ultimate threat to national security. This isn't just a radical thought. It's a necessary rethinking of where our priorities lie. Let's reframe the narrative. The same level of coordination, innovation, and urgency the military uses to respond to national security threats could be redirected towards saving the planet. I know it sounds like a big ask, but the logic is undeniable. If we can organize resources for war, why not for peace? Take, for example, a story I recently came across about a military base in the US. They've been experimenting with solar power to run some of their facilities. The results? Incredible. Not only did they reduce energy costs, but they created a model for energy independence that could be replicated across other bases, potentially saving billions in the long term. Imagine if that wasn't just a small project, but part of a larger global initiative to repurpose military budgets into sustainable infrastructure projects. We'd be looking at clean energy grids, advanced climate technologies, and a future where the resources once dedicated to destruction are now focused on preservation. But here's the real kicker. This is about reclaiming our future. Think about the future we want to leave behind. A future where the focus isn't on preparing for the next conflict, but on ensuring that our planet remains habitable for future generations. It's about reclaiming not just our security, but our dignity as stewards of the Earth. The idea of military budgets funding green energy projects isn't just a win for the environment, it's a win for humanity. No longer do we need to choose between defense and climate action. The two can coexist. So let's be clear about one thing. Embracing this shift shows a new kind of strength. Strength that doesn't rely on weapons, but on innovation, collaboration, and foresight. Strength that looks beyond borders and understands that no matter where you live, the climate crisis is a problem we all share. By redirecting defense spending toward the green shift, we aren't just investing in the planet, we're investing in peace, prosperity, and a future that's worth fighting for. Your choices matter, your future matters, and the actions we take today will shape the world of tomorrow. Number 9. The water exchange. International desalination pacts. What if I told you that one of the world's most pressing problems, water scarcity, could be solved not just through better management of resources, but by a global network of cooperation? Imagine a world where countries trade not just goods or oil, but water. Now I know what you're thinking. Water isn't something we can just trade like coffee or gold, right? Well, trust me on this. It's not as far-fetched as it seems. You see, we're all aware of the looming water crisis. Countries are facing severe droughts, rivers are drying up, and aquifers are depleting. You've probably seen the headlines: water wars, skyrocketing prices, and entire regions running out of fresh water. But here's the thing. We've been so focused on fighting over water that we've forgotten that water itself is a resource we can create, not just fight over. Desalination, the process of turning seawater into drinkable water, has advanced so much that we could use it to completely change the game. Now, you might be wondering, how does this translate into cooperation instead of conflict? How do we go from crisis to collaboration? Here's where things get interesting. What if countries that have access to vast coastlines and desalination technology could exchange this precious resource with countries that are landlocked or suffering from drought? Think about it. Countries like Saudi Arabia or Israel, who have mastered desalination, could form international pacts to trade water with nations like those in Africa or Asia, where water scarcity is a real threat. It's a win-win situation. The water-rich countries get economic benefits, and the water-scarce countries get access to a reliable, renewable resource. Sounds too good to be true? Let me walk you through it. I recently had a conversation with a colleague who was part of a startup focusing on sustainable desalination technology. They're working on a system where seawater can be converted into drinkable water at a fraction of the current cost. Imagine if that technology were deployed on a global scale. Countries could create a cooperative network where each nation's water needs are met by their neighbor, rather than waiting for climate change to make the situation worse. If you think about it, this is essentially the same model we've used for centuries with things like oil and gas. The difference now is that we're not talking about depleting a finite resource, but creating something renewable, water. But the emotional benefit of this idea, it's huge. This is about securing our collective future. It's about knowing that no matter where you live, access to clean water won't be a luxury. It will be a right. This isn't just about politics or trade deals. It's about ensuring that no child, no family, no community has to suffer the effects of thirst or waterborne diseases simply because of where they live. The idea of countries working together to solve a shared problem without ego, without conflict, is incredibly empowering. And it's not just about water, it's about shifting the way we think about global challenges. This idea of international desalination pacts doesn't just show practical strength, it shows moral strength. It shows a world where we're not fighting over the last drop of water, but working together to ensure there's enough for everyone. It's a vision of unity, of collaboration, and most importantly, of hope. So next time you hear about the water crisis, remember, this isn't a problem without a solution. The future is ours to create, together. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video gave you some fresh perspectives on how pragmatism can actually make a difference in solving the world's biggest challenges. If you found this video valuable, please hit that like button. It really helps out. And if you want to dive deeper into more topics like this, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Also, if you know someone who could benefit from this, share it with them. They might just find the answers they've been looking for. I'd love to hear your thoughts or any personal experiences you've had related to pragmatism and global issues, so leave a comment down below. Let's keep the conversation going and build a community of like-minded thinkers. Remember, change doesn't happen through wishful thinking, it happens when we take action. So, take what you've learned here today and apply it in your own life. Together, we can make the world better, one pragmatic step at a time. Keep thinking, keep acting, and I'll see you in the next video.